Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
and
you.
it's a real pleasure today to introduce our speaker for the regional webinar today. It's Dr. Kefyalu Wareta Haile, and he is the Assistant Professor of TEFL, Senior Lecturer and Researcher at Wolaitu Sodo University in Ethiopia. He's specialised in English language teaching and particularly in reflective learning, communication and questioning and feedback strategies, which is what he's going to talk about today for us. He has many years experience, over 17 years, teaching across various educational levels. He's participated in several British Council webinars, earned a lot of professional development certificates as well, and he's published a lot of different articles, reviewed journal articles as well. He's given some training to secondary school teachers and university instructors in innovative ELT methods to improve language learning. He really wants to collaborate more with school teachers and teacher educators, sharing his expertise and to contribute to the professional growth of English language teachers worldwide. So after that introduction, I'd like to pass you on to Kefyalu for a really interesting webinar. Over to you, Kefyalu.
Okay, thank you, Linda, for your kind introduction. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to say welcome for joining this webinar in different countries in Africa. To begin the webinar with the first objective of this webinar is to discuss how oral feedback techniques facilitate reflective and self-regulated learning. The second objective is to enhance teachers' awareness of the use of classroom-based oral feedback techniques to assess students' progress in ELT classroom. And the last one is to introduce teachers to practical application of oral feedback techniques to enhance reflective learning. Throughout this webinar, let's learn, reflect, and grow together is the essence of this webinar presentation. Just a second slide, yeah. Before start the webinar, just let me see your feedback memories. What comes to your mind when you hear about oral reflective feedback techniques? Participants, can I see your reflection in the chat? Okay, what comes to your mind when you hear about oral reflective feedback techniques? Just would you please forward? Yeah, great. Saying, okay, verbal questions. Someone say eliciting self-reflection. Disu from Ethiopia is very interesting. And others still writing their reflections. Dr. Tshoma Bakala says, yeah, great presentation. Someone say presentation, yeah, interesting. Someone say verbal feedback, okay, promoting and clarifying requests, interesting. Reflection in thinking, great to see this response here, very good. Okay, clarification, okay, looking in words. Okay, it's very interesting to see different reflection from participants. Okay, again, someone say gaining confidence. Great. Let's see another reflective activities that align with your feedback memory. So let's move to the second slide, please. Yeah, again, I need your feedback experience. Think about how you usually give oral feedback techniques for your students while delivering different language skills. Would you say your feedback approach is more conventional, which focus on assessing students' errors and specific performance, or is it more of reflective, which focus on assessing the learning progress or helping students just to have a forward-looking? Can I get your experience in the chat box, please? The second questions or reflective questions. Yeah, thank you. Okay, someone, yeah, I think both, okay. Thank you for your active participation. Different participants are, dropping the response. Someone, for example, say assessing the learning progress first. Okay, someone say from reflective. Okay, I use one-on-one reflective conference. Interesting to see such a valuable response. Okay, both of them. Someone say both of them. Okay, good. Okay, more reflective. It's very interesting. Okay, I need again more reflection in this regard so that we can have a shared understanding of the difference between the two. Okay, I think I use both independent of the situation. Yeah, situation matters. Interesting. Okay, I need again more reflection in this. Okay, both of them. Someone say both of them. Dr. Rahil Abu. Yeah, thank you. Interesting. Okay, someone say achievement. Then I move to on assessing the improvement. Mostly, okay, 101. It's very interesting. Okay, I use formative. Yeah, keep going, participating your reflection in this regard, and let's see the difference between feedback shifts from conventional to reflective approach in the second slide, so that we can have a common understanding the difference between conventional and reflective feedback. As we all know, conventional feedback is a one-way correction in which a teacher often focus on, providing specific error correction without involving students to voice what the feedback is given or what gaps they are suggested to improve. And it is also focused on the error in which the teacher emphasized to correct students' error without giving evidence. And it's also often teacher-driven because teacher is an authoritative person to control all feedback information given to the students, and the students are not given an opportunity to have a say on the feedback they've received. And it's also often considered as a vague praise like great, good job, excellent. Such kind of feedback, is more of a praise or general praise, which is vague because in such feedback, teachers do not show or give specific information for the students so that students can see the gaps and the strengths so that they can have the chance to improve in the future. At the end of such characteristics, students in conventional feedback stay a passive receipt of information because teachers are not, encourage them to ask a question, to analyze the feedback they receive from the teacher, and to apply the feedback information for ongoing improvements. Conversely, reflective feedback is a two-way dialogue in which teacher and students make a conversation in which students have also an opportunity to ask questions, to reflect about the feedback they receive, and can have a say to share their experience as well. And it is also a learning focus because reflective feedback as language is, by its very nature, a process-oriented process, a learning focused feedback can facilitate such kind of learning. And teacher and students are also shared responsibility in which teachers take a responsibility in the same way students are taking to receive the feedback and apply for improvement. And it's also reflective and actionable because the feedback teachers provide is specific that reveals the student's strengths and there's a gap that needs to be improved. And in reflective feedback, students are more of active participants or engage actively in asking questions, analyzing the feedback they received, and apply the feedback in the learning process to change their performance progress. Let me again see your reflection in the second slide about the different definition of feedback, which is given by a scholar. But before that, let me see your feedback, oral feedback definition by having a look on the picture. Just what do you see in this picture? so that you can generate defining what oral reflective feedback mean to you. Can I see, please, your response in the chat? When you see a picture, what do you see and how do you define oral reflective feedback mean to you? Participants, please, I need to see your definition of oral feedback in a very short phrases or short statements. Thank you. Okay, very good. Okay. Okay, someone say reflective back. The reflection is not true. Yes, very interesting. Reflection is not true. I don't know what does this mean. Okay, while looking in the mirror, I'm smiling, but the mirror reflects hardness. It's a very analytical response. Very good, interesting. Okay. Okay, let me see more response in this regard so that, it is self-reflection and self-assessment. Okay. A reaction that could encourage, okay. This, okay, self-assessment, interesting. Looking back what one had done, looking back what one has done, interesting. Interesting. Okay, maybe I'm looking at the area, a spoken comment, correction, suggestion, guidance, provide voice. Okay, it's very interesting response, and this shows that you have a good understanding of what oral reflective feedback mean to you. Okay. Okay, to save time, just let me say something in this regard. You know, as you see or observe the picture, you know, as a teacher or as a human being, you know, we want to look our appearance in the mirror so that a mirror can reflect our strengths or our bad or good appearances. In the same way, when you provide oral reflective feedback, the feedback can, you know, reflect the student's strengths and the gap that student need to improve. So, so that we can define that, you know, oral reflective feedback is, you know, mirroring our students' strengths and showing the gap and supports them to improve improve in ongoing progress or in an ongoing manner. Let's have a look of two scholarly definition in the second slide. According to, you know, Hattie 2007, he defined, or the scholar defined, oral feedback is an information given by the teacher to the students in a way the students are supported or guided to think critically about their learning, about their response, about their progress, and, you know, guiding them to develop a strategy that helps them to improve their performance progress in an ongoing way. According to Hart 2013, it's also defined as an instructional tools that actively engage learners in continuous reflection on how they approach their learning, they manage learning, and assess their performance progress. From the two definitions, we can sum up, or we can infer that, you know, oral reflective feedback can be considered as an information given for the students. In a way, students are supported to learn and improve their performance progress in an ongoing manner, rather than, you know, measuring a specific learning outcome at the end of the lesson or at the end of the course. Can we move to the second slide? Okay, next. Okay, I need also your reflection about these questions. When is oral feedback most helpful for facilitating reflective learning? As we define reflective learning as an information that encourages students to think critically, to assess their performance progress, and develop a strategy to improve an ongoing manner. So how oral feedback most helpful to enhance reflective learning? Are you just selecting A or B or C or D. Can I see your response in the chat box? You can also choose more choices. Yeah. Okay. Abraham Alemu said B. Okay. Someone say A and B. Someone say A and B again. Somebody say A and B again. Okay. Okay. Masai Muhammad says the answer is B. B. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, very good. Different participants are, actively dropping their response in the chat. I'm glad to see your active participation. Thank you very much. Okay, someone say, for example, ABC. Okay, what about D? Still, I couldn't see choice D. Okay, still someone say ABC. Someone say I delete D. It's very funny and interesting. Okay, someone say ABC. Okay, nice. Okay, nice. Yeah. To enhance reflective learning need to have a characteristics of A, B, C, and D do not, because in choice D, it says when it gives only praise and correction. Such kind of, providing generic praise and error correction is, as we have seen in the previous slide, it is a characteristics of conventional feedback approach that doesn't, provide students an opportunity to learn from their experience and to learn from the feedback they received from the teacher or from the peers. So as I understood, most of the participants have a good understanding of how reflective feedback can be enhanced. Okay, let's move to the next slide, which is about, again, getting your reflection. There is, an interesting quote that entails how feedback can work in our real-world classroom. Let me read this quote. My approach to assessment is like framing an apples. I tend my apples every day and monitor each race every day. At the harvest time, I assess the quality of the fruit. This quote is taken from a British Council website, Assessing for Learning. So you can use this website to browse different assessment resources and take online courses. So based on these quotes, let me see your reflection in answering the two questions. What does the metaphor mean to you? And how can we apply this mindset in our classroom? Can I see your reflection in the chat box? What does the first response is, what does this metaphor mean to you? And how can we apply this mindset in our classroom or in our lesson presentation? Okay, let me see your response in the chat box. Okay, yeah, okay, providing assessment is like looking after apples. Very interesting response. Okay. Okay, I need your active participation. Yeah, treatment of students every day effectively. It's very interesting response. Yeah, okay, reflective assessment need follow up. Yeah, very interesting key point. It means assessment is a continued activity. Exactly, it's very interesting. Assessment, okay, quality assessment is a must. Yes. Okay, good, great. Okay, regular checkup of students' program, monitoring, the reflection of continuous assessment. Good, good. Okay, student need continuous monitoring and assessment as a learning pattern. Very good, interesting. Okay, yeah, this very interesting. Providing assessment, yeah, process oriented assessment is very interesting. As the message is very fast, and thank you for your active participation. You are, dropping your response, analyzing the codes. or the metaphor. Yeah, someone say, for example, use data and observation to monitor their achievement. Yeah, using data is very important key point that's relevant. Yeah, monitor learners' progress. Very good. Okay, assessment must be continuous or continual. Great, great response. I can see from the chat box, and everybody are actively participating. Yeah, to know how students are learning so many reflective reflection. Mean, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your active participation, and I thank you. Let's have a tech tip from this metaphor from the next slide, because as a farmer, monitor and tend his apple in order to get a quality fruit or a quality apple. As a teacher, we need to make our oral feedback as part of a learning process, as most of you have a response in the chat box. We need also focus on the student's progress rather than assessing specific learning outcome at the end of the lesson or at the end of the class or at the end of the course, so that we can get students show an improvement in an ongoing manner, that like the farmer assess and monitor his fruits to get an effective and tasteful apple as a product. We need to also encourage our students to reflect on their learning experience regularly. And we are also expected to monitor our students' progress on a regular basis by giving a reflective and supportive feedback and adjusting our teaching as needed. Because the more we give and support students in an ongoing manner, the more students become improved in their language skills. Some scholars like Manuel and his colleague 2024 says, when feedback becomes a reflective dialogue or a continuous reflective dialogue, it shapes learners to think critically, and it encourages students to ask questions and grow in an ongoing and in a progressive manner. So that this is a very interesting quote, entails as a teacher to practice this in our lesson presentation. Let's move on the next slide. Okay, let's have also a reflective discussion in the chat box by matching the more frequently used feedback strategies in our lesson presentation. From A to E are reflective feedback techniques that are applied in our day-to-day lesson presentation. And in column B, you can also find a corresponding features of different feedback techniques. Would you please match the feedback strategies with their corresponding feature in column B? I'm also eager to see your response in the chat box. Okay, someone, Maria Leah say A, 2C, yeah, okay. Okay, Divya, I think C2, yeah, C2, C correspond with 2, okay. Okay, okay, someone say 825, very good, 825. Someone say 4 to E, E2C2, interesting, yeah, okay. Okay, very good, interesting. Okay, A5, wonderful. A5, C2, Abraham, A2, E4, someone say E4, very interesting. Can I see more response? Yeah, E4, B1, okay, B1 again, someone say B1, okay. That's very interesting. Okay, majority of you are correctly matched the feedback technique with their corresponding features. So to save time or to manage my time, let me give you your correct match. facilitative feedback correspond with number 3, and descriptive feedback correspond with number 1. Motivational feedback correspond with number 2. Directive feedback correspond with number 5, and peer-to-peer feedback correspond with number 4. And we'll see these feedback strategies with classroom application having different example and practical tip in the next slide or next sessions. Okay, before we move to having a reflective discussion on feedback strategy, to what extent do these feedback techniques reflect your current practice? Are you applying the 5 feedback you match with their corresponding feature in your lesson presentation? Can I see your reflection in the chat? To what extent are you applying this in not all? Tomadi, not all. Some of them, someone say, Dr. Tashoma, not all. Okay, someone say some. Okay, interesting. A few of them. Okay, sometimes, but yeah. Okay, okay, some, yes, some of them. Very interesting to have such different experience. Most of them, okay, most of them, someone say, some of them, that's fine, Nakash, thank you, some of them, I applied most of them, yeah, okay, yeah, I can observe from you the majority of response that the majority of you are applying a mix of different feedback techniques while you are delivering your lesson in different classroom. It's great to see such experiences. Now let's see how each feedback techniques can be applicable in different lesson presentation. In this presentation, we'll see 6 types of feedback techniques: facilitative, descriptive, peer-to-peer, motivational, student-to-teacher kinds of feedback. To begin with, whenever we apply or use different feedback techniques, we have purposes or we have aims. For example, when you are planning to apply facilitative feedback, our aim is to enhance students' thinking about their learning or to get their reflection about their learning or the kind of feedback you provide. Or it also helps us to engage students deeply about the lesson presented or the learning material. In order to practically apply this, you can ask different guiding questions instead of, telling them the correct answer or giving, generic praise. Whenever you are asking guiding questions, you are also better give wait time or contemplation time for a few seconds so that student can have a chance to think critically about the guiding question you raise and provide a response for the questions you provide or you ask it. For example, you can say, is the verb the same for I and he? Which form do you think is correct here? Whenever you are teaching, subject-verb agreement, you can, instead of just telling students to tell you the correct verb, you can ask a guiding question, what do you think is correct? So that students have a chance to justify or reason out why they are correct or incorrect, so that we can, enhancing or enabling them to develop a reflective mindset and we can engage them in deep learning. Whenever you give descriptive feedback, our purpose is just to encourage students' reflection about the quality of their performance. As we engage students in different activity, and at the end of the day, we can give, a descriptive feedback to assess students' performance progress. To help students just achieve this purpose, we better help students to notice or to know their strengths by describing what was done well and what needs further improvements. For example, if you are teaching a past simple tense in a context, you can ask, you used went in the past tense. That's great. Can you find another sentence used in the past tense? So if you are, asking a probing prompts, you are, encouraging students to identify a strategy to find a similar verb used in the past tense, instead of just telling you're correct or you are incorrect, or praising them in the meantime of their performance, so that student can have the chance to develop a thinking mindset or reflective mindset and develop self-regulative skills. The other feedback strategy is, directive feedback, which helps learners to know exactly what to change or improve. Whenever you apply directive feedback in your lesson presentation, instead of, providing students, you must do, or you have to do, you better, support students by giving a clear and simple guidance or simple instruction how students can perform the given tasks in a better way. Or you can ask even a follow-up or a guiding questions. For example, you may ask students' knowledge or performance in using is or are for singular pronoun like he and she. He, a masculine sex pronoun. For example, you can say, great, you used is in the sentence. Why do you say he is, not he are? So this prompting question allows students just to justify why is not goes, why are is not goes with a pronoun he, so that you are empowering to develop self-learning or self-regulative learning skills. And students have an opportunity to reflect their answer when they are, telling or responding such questions. You are capacitating students to use the target language even in the classroom. And the other feedback strategy is, motivational feedback, which is used to build students' confidence and to engage them, keep going in the learning process, or in reflecting their views and actively participating in the learning process. In order to apply these feedback techniques in the classroom effectively, we as a teacher need to recognize students' effort to perform the given tasks or to perform the given activity, instead of just expecting a perfect or a correct answer from the students. Whenever we give a motivational feedback, we need to encourage, or we need to use encouraging language, or a kind of feedback that keep the likelihood of student active participation in the learning process. For example, you can say, for example, you understood the main idea. That's great. What helped you to understand it? For example, if you are teaching a reading skill for different level of students, a student may, gets the main idea from reading texts, and you empower them by saying you understood the main idea. That's great. Such kind of motivational praise can keep or encourage students to stay focused on the given activity, and the feedback prompt that inquires what helped you to understand it just encourage students to entail or to tell us the strategies they applied to get the main idea, so that we are encouraging to tell us the strategies they employed. So such kind of, again, feedback promote self-regulated and reflective learning mindset in the learning process. And the other feedback, or the two last feedback technique, is peer-to-peer feedback, which is mainly used to promote collaborative and reflective learning environment. Whenever we encourage peer-to-peer feedback, when we give different pair work or group work activity, we need to encourage and train them or guide them how students can give and receive feedback from the students. If you are not, giving a success criteria or a criteria how they can give feedback, student may not willing to give feedback for a partner. So as a teacher, at the end of engaging them in different pair work or group activity or an individual presentation, you need to encourage students just to give feedback on his or her friend's strong side or weak side that need improvements. For example, you can begin with a feedback prompt is tell your partner one thing they could improve, or tell your friend a strength and an area that needs improvement. Or you can, in such way, we can empower or we can promote peer-to-peer feedback or peer-to-peer learning experience. Different research shows that, when students are well-trained and, engaged or promote to learn from the peers, they are, learning some percent better than teachers' feedback. So as we know, we need to encourage peer-to-peer feedback in our lesson presentation while we engage students to perform the given tasks. And the other or the last feedback technique is student to teacher types of feedback. Such kind of feedback is used to encourage students to think about their learning experience and to provide teachers an input that needs improvement in the teaching learning process. For example, you can ask reflective questions at the beginning of the lesson, or in the meantime of the lesson, or at the end of the lesson. For example, you can say, how are you happy with today's lesson? Which part of today's lesson is difficult, simple, or very difficult? And you can ask why, so that the student can give you an input about their learning preference or level of difficulty about the lesson you deliver, so that you can improve your lesson presentation for a coming lesson or in the next lesson. And student-teacher feedback engagement can also promote, teacher-student relationship, because when you receive feedback from our students, a student can trust as a teacher whenever they express their feelings. So this feedback also another valuable feedback we need to promote while delivering different language skills in our lesson presentation. Just this is briefly what different feedback approaches that are expected to be used in our lesson presentation. Can I get your reflection in the chat? How likely are you to change one aspect of your feedback techniques based on today's webinar? I hope I briefly, enhanced your awareness about the different or the 6 types of feedback techniques that are supposed to enhance students' critical thinking, self-regulated learning, and reflective mindset. So how are you likely to change one aspect of your feedback techniques based on our today's webinar? Can I see your reflection, please? Very likely, interesting, okay, very likely. Okay, again, someone say, very likely in a positive way. Thank you very much. Okay, very likely, more likely, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, someone say very likely. Yeah, very likely. Okay, very likely. Okay, extreme. Okay, very likely as much as nursery. It's very interesting. You are great participant. Really, I'm proud of you all participants, because you are generous to share your understanding and what you have as a teacher. It's very interesting. Okay, good idea to promote such kind of feedback. Okay. Okay, very interesting. Okay, as a teacher, I suggest you, to practice this feedback approach in your lesson presentation, so that we can likely improve our instructional approach in terms of assessing students in an ongoing manner, rather than measuring students' achievement, which is the characteristics of conventional approach. Okay, thank you all for your participation. Now let's move to the next slide, which is important tips until we meet next Friday. We must reframe our feedback or our oral feedback techniques from changing our approach from correction to reflection. As we have said, giving correcting feedback discourage students' critical thinking and students' motivation towards learning. So that we need to change our mindset, correcting our feedback approach from changing our feedback approach from correction to reflection. And we can also expect to create a kind of space for the students to voice or to reflect their feedback or to reflect their feeling through encouraging or engaging them in peer-to-peer feedback and through teachers' active facilitation. And yeah, we are also supposed to promote, ongoing dialogue between teacher and students so that we can have an opportunity or we can create an opportunity to enhance or to empower student-teacher relationship as well. And we need to also emphasize oral feedback as continuous reflective learning process, not as a one-time event. Most of traditional or conventional teachers give feedback or consider feedback as a one-time event or a one-time practice. Instead, we need to consider our feedback approach as a continuous learning process. To wind up this webinar, I want to use John Dewey's quotes. He said, "The more we cultivate a culture of reflection and grow in our classroom, the more our students will internalize it in their own learning journeys." This, important quote made by or suggested by John Dewey entails us, as a language teacher, we need to create a space for students to reflect their feeling, understanding, and a kind of feedback they received. And we need to guide them just to apply the feedback techniques to improve their learning progress throughout the course or throughout the learning environment. This is all what I have for today. Now we can improve our discussion through question and answer session. Thank you very much all for your active participation, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kefyalu. That was so interesting. And this is shown by all the interaction in the chat. And so many people were responding and putting really interesting ideas there. So that shows how interesting it was and how interested everyone was. So excellent. We have had quite a few questions in the chat already. So I'll start with the first one. You ready for the questions now?
Sure, Linda.
Right. So the first one, should reflective feedback be before, during, or after completion of a task? What do you think about that?
Okay, thank you. Feedback practice or feedback provision is, our inevitable part of our instructional approach, because whenever we start our lesson, we can ask students to give us feedback, or we can give them a feedback about, for example, previous lesson. How was the last lesson look like? What make interesting, or what things students need to forward in the previous lesson, so that the teacher can get the students' understanding and adjust today's lesson. In the meantime, or during the lesson, we are also expected to give feedback, and we need to allow students to interrupt us and ask questions, so that students can, learn from your opportunity to ask you a question, and students can have an opportunity to learn from a feedback you give on time. This is, we call it reflection on action, if I am not mistaken. There are three models: reflection, in action, on action, and for action. Whenever we are, delivering our lesson, we need to give feedback online so that students can learn from instant feedback you provided. But the feedback must not be corrective. Rather, it must be reflective and it must be supportive, so that students can have the opportunity to take an action or to apply the feedback in performing the given tasks. And at the end of the lesson, as I presented as one of the feedback or the last feedback strategy, we need to allow students to give you feedback about the lesson presentation so that teacher can adjust their instructional approach next time. Teacher can have also an opportunity to assess what student get from the lesson in terms of lesson objectives. So providing feedback in all phases of the lesson is very helpful and suggestible in different research.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that answered the second half of his question, which was, should it be continual? Which the answer is yes from that, isn't it? Yeah, great.
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about the type of feedback, though, another interesting question, can we use local language in English classes for oral feedback if the need arises? What's your take on that?
It is very interesting questions that we teachers are, face challenges in our classroom, especially in a classroom where multilingual students are there. As to me, as a researcher and as a teacher and webinar presenter in this topic, I am not, suggesting you to use a mother tongue to give feedback always. But there are certain circumstances that enforce us to use the mother tongue to give feedback. For example, if you consider the case in Ethiopia, students are, speaking Afaan Oromo, Tigrinya, Walaitinya, and different language. So which language do you prefer to give the students as a mother tongue? And Amharic is an official language, and it is expected to be spoken by all students, and some teachers use Amharic to give feedback in the students' mother tongue. But it is preferable to give feedback in English so that students can learn from the language itself. So in some cases, we may force it to give feedback in the student's mother tongue, but as a media of instruction and as we are teaching English language, we need to give feedback in English. But we can translate it in English by English. We can simplify the language to the student's level and background.
Yeah, they've got to understand it, haven't they? But it probably depends on the official line in the school that you're in, so you need to check. So yeah, great. Okay, how will I know that students have succeeded in my lesson? So amidst all this feedback, how do you manage success and how do you know they've actually succeeded?
Great question, Linda, and I appreciate participants who raised these questions. Success is not measured overnight. If we are, giving a reflective kinds of feedback, because in day-to-day activity, we may measure students' success or measure students' achievement, by asking prompting questions. While delivering, for example, a lesson, and if you are asking question instantly, you can have the opportunity to assess students' success or students' engagement in your lesson presentation rather than, conducting a kind of continuous lecture without any breaking space. So in the meantime of our lesson, we need to ask students a reflective feedback, or we need to ask questions so that we can assess whether students achieve your lesson goals or your lesson objectives, instead of just assessing students by giving quiz or by giving a kind of grade at the end of the semester or at the end of the lesson. So we need to assess the success of students by asking students a question, by inviting students to reflect what they have in their mind about the learning process, so that you can have the opportunity even to revise your approach or to declare that you achieve your instructional goal.
Yeah, there's a lot for us to do and think about, isn't there?
Yes,
Teaching is not an easy job. We've got to be aware of and thinking about and checking lots of different things, haven't we, at the same time?
Sure,
and we know that. Yeah,
great.
Okay, what about this one? How can we relate feedback to grading the student's performance?
Very interesting question again. Feedback is one part of assessment. We shouldn't forget that, giving feedback is part of our assessment, our continuous progressive assessment, because we progressively assess students by giving feedback. This feedback is an information that focus on students' improvement, not just assessing a kind of measurement to say he achieves this or not. So we need to associate feedback is a part of continuous assessment, so that we can ask, for example, prepare a checklist to assess our students' performance progress in a certain lesson, so that you can measure students' performance after you give a feedback from based on that checklist. It might be written or it might be oral. So we need to consider feedback as a continuous assessment tool in which teachers need to record the students' performance or the students' information, maybe as a checklist, or we may have different tools to keep that information to measure our students' progress through time, not overnight.
Yeah, and it's just part of the whole process, isn't it? Yeah.
Sure.
So it's again very complex.
Yeah.
And we've got loads of questions left, and we won't have time to answer them all. And
Yeah,
it's great that Blessing's been posting the link to the Telegram group in the chat. So please, everybody, keep the rest of the questions and ask them on Friday, because Kefyalu will be there in the chat to answer more of those on Friday in Telegram. I think we've got time for one more before we finish, maybe two.
Sure.
If a child is not improving after lots of different oral and written feedback, what should you do?
It's again a very exciting and interesting questions, which would be raised to take a lesson as a language teacher. You may give feedback again and again. You may give a certain input to improve your child, but you may not see a progress. What should you do? Shall I forward this question for participants, as we have a specific time, if it's possible? I wish I would do that way, but just to react on this, as students are not show a kind of progress based on your feedback, you have to make a kind of actual research so that you can find the root cause for the student's problem. One. And as a teacher, we need to again give a special scaffolding mechanism. We need to give a special attention for the student to support, instead of just blaming that this student is not showing a progress. So let's leave and forget that, and let's move with active students. That is not a good and responsible teacher's characteristic. As a teacher, what I would do is just first I should make a research. I should contact a family. I should just research about the student's background, history. All students have come in the classroom having different problems, challenges. Yeah. So we need to share that burden, and we need to be close with that student and find a solution.
And it might be that there's a problem with the teaching. We might need to use a completely different approach.
Sure.
That's another
so
way.
We need to get the sort for the.
So many interesting questions, so many excellent answers.
Welcome.
So thank you so much for that.
Welcome.
Thank you for the brilliant webinar. I'm handing over to Steve now to close it.